Be here. So much more excited to be here with Leslie and Melissa today. You know them from past Saturdays, and we're just going to build on everything we've been building on up until now. The key word today is balance. So everybody should be putting their thinking caps on and figuring out what balance means to you, or at least having a starting point to say, here's my initial thoughts on balance, and here's where I've moved to by the end of the conversation. And naturally, the more participation, the more energy, the more we benefit because we're here to direct our support in the most relevant way to get you some takeaways. And with that said, chat's open. I'll turn it over to Leslie, and she could share a little bit about her thoughts on balance. And then we'll move to Melissa. Leslie, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Don, for being here. It's always been a great conversation. For those that don't know, I'm Leslie Neidick, conflict strategist. Obviously, I manage conflict, but also negotiations and communications. And I love sharing my strategies. I think that's obvious on LinkedIn. I do it through a blog, and I also do it on YouTube. I like sharing what I know and what I've learned after all these years. Now, with all that being said, the word balance, it brings up, it's like an anxiety. Like for me, the word balance, I think of like balance beam. I was never able to do that in gymnastics. Uh, so but what I do is I reframe the word. So because it's used often, balance, work-life balance, family, personal lives balance. So, but I hear the word as harmony. So how to find the harmony, because the balance word just sounds too negative and too much pressure for me. And that's how I think of it in a positive way, that there's to find the harmony between work and life. That is a constant challenge. It's not like you can just address it and then it's easy. It's always needs work and always needs intention. And I learned that all too well being an entrepreneur for the last 20 years because things intersect even more. So setting boundaries even is a word that's hard to address with that. I have to just find the harmony in mixing it all together. And also between friends and family and obligations and things I want to do. It's constantly finding the harmony, not that balance. I see that statue where the woman's holding like the weights and it has to be in balance for it to work. I'd rather find like the harmony, and sometimes it's not an even balance. It's just a mixture.
Very interesting. Melissa, balance. And say a little bit about yourself naturally.
Of course. Hey, everyone. I'm so happy to be back. I'm really excited, as always, to have this conversation with Leslie and Don. They're both awesome people and awesome conversationalists. So I'm super excited. Um, it's funny, Leslie and I are always on the same wavelength. And I swear we don't like compare notes before we get here. So the first word that popped into my head when I heard balance was harmony, right? It's literally the very first word I thought of. I don't really have such a negative connotation to balance, though. I actually think balance is a positive thing, and it's something that we should all strive for in our lives. Of course, again, same wavelength. The first thing that popped into my head after harmony was work-life balance, because that's sort of the one we all hear the most about and we all think the most about. And that's a really hard balance to achieve sometimes, right? And so I think for me, one really important concept that always comes to my mind about balance is setting boundaries. And that's a really good way to help achieve balance. And it's something that's really hard for me. And I think it's hard for a lot of people. I think it's especially hard for women, not exclusively, for sure. It's not just exclusive to women, but I do think it's harder for us. I think, many of us, women in particular, are kind of conditioned to be people pleasers, to be givers. Maybe we're mothers. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. but it has to be contained. And setting boundaries is a really hard lesson for me. But if you never say no, you won't have time to say yes to what's really important and what's really meaningful and what's going to give you that balance and what's going to give you that purpose.
Hey, that was perfect. What a great launching pad from there, because from hearing what everybody's saying and the comments which are coming in rapid fire, which is great, I look at balance as balance up. You know, everybody's talking about level up, but balance up means that some part of your life has just raised or evolved or became a higher priority, which has left a lot of things a little bit behind and disconnected. So by balancing up, you figure out where is your deficiency, because some people put too much of a priority on one part of their life, which creates imbalance in other parts of their life. And if they can continue to make it level wherever they can. The other element is time. Do you balance every day? Do you balance once a month? Do you let balance take care of itself? Whatever it is, how important is balance to you? Because everything you think about yourself, you know you can do. You either don't have the motivation or the skill set, and both of them can be achieved. So I see it as constructive balance. Just like a skyscraper, they start with a really strong foundation and they keep building and building and building. Once they get everything even, someone says, let's do another floor. So before we turn it back to Leslie, I'd be remiss without sharing all these wonderful people who are decided to attend on this beautiful Saturday morning. Rosie's here. I don't believe seeing you in the past, but I know we're seeing 3, 4, 5 new people a day. So the word is getting out. And, you know, this is really for you and what you can do with what you learn today, and even be part of the learning by participating in the comments. So Baz is here, very interesting gentleman. Good to see you, Baz. Scott's here. Scott's a great guy. Let the fun begin for sure. Chris is here. Greetings from Malaysia. I hope everything's fine out there. Mosh is here. Great to see you. Aharon is here. Had a good conversation with Aharon. Ashif is here. Another very, very fascinating gentleman. He's got an illustrious background and huge experience. So glad to see you, Ashif. Stephen's here. Stephen's a regular, especially on Saturdays when Melissa and Leslie are here. So it's really great to see fans of fans of fans, which really helps. Rita's here. Rita's just great. She's actually on Wednesdays, always try to put a W, like last week was wings, before that was wisdom. So if you know good W words, send them to Rita. Stephen says hello. Rita says boundaries are important and saying no is okay. You can always rebalance tomorrow. Who you saying no to? You know, one person for one day. How big of a deal is that? Scott says lesson on balance, not just for karate, for whole life. You know, at the end of the day, the formula should be balance for happiness, right? And if you're happy at the end of the day and you just love yourself and everybody around you, you're definitely in balance, right? That should be the directional element. And when you're sad, ask yourself what isn't there that used to be. Linda says, oh, good morning. And balance could have many numbered thoughts under, and mentioning things to consider and see how it fits into our life. So true, and it's so simple. It's such a fascinating character, full of life lessons, balance especially. Well, thank you, Stephen, for promoting some wonderful people, because that's the other thing is you get some validation here. You know, people recognize you and what you've been able to do. Cindy's just terrific. We don't talk much about her new job. Hopefully everything's going just peachy. Janie's here, a new individual. Thank you so much for finding us. Hopefully we can deliver some value to everybody today. Okay, back and forth. Okay, here's a gentleman from, lady. I'm from Perth, West Australia. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Because I know the time frame and being able to watch this is not easy. So Feel free to contribute and participate. Okay, and we're caught up after Linda. We all start to learn balance as a child learning to walk, and stays important all through our lives to keep moving. And that's the key. If everything is dynamic, it's guaranteed things will change. Hopefully it's the right bus taking you to the right place after a while, but believe in change, because that's a definite given. And then how do you want to respond to it? And with that said, Leslie, take it away.
Oh, I want to just even go with that, because change happens. So we have to be flexible and agile. And you mentioned priorities before. I'm reviewing my priorities. Sometimes I have to do it multiple times a day because something happened to have changed what I thought when I set those priorities. And now I just have to rebalance them or reharmonize them, because otherwise I'll feel like a failure at the end of the day. So I just have to, things happen. So priorities change, but I do consider priorities like a moving, fluid kind of spectrum. Maybe there are some things that stay as absolute priorities, but others have to move around, and in the moment now they're not as important. And I've gotten better at like trying to literally step back from looking at things that when you're in it, it feels so important. And when you force yourself to step back, and luckily I can just walk out my front door and take a walk for 10 minutes and arrive at a gorgeous park or the water, and just be like, oh, okay, now I'm remembering what the real priorities are. Because I think we've all experienced that. When you're in something, it seems so, so important. And then you just need something else to happen or see so that you could rebalance it.
That's great. Melissa?
Yeah, so Leslie made me think of two things. Well, three things. The third one being I'm really jealous you can get to the water that fast. One is change, right? Change is constant. We're all constantly changing. And if you're not changing or you're not open to change, you're not going to grow. We don't grow if we don't change. And I don't believe any of us are the same person we were a year ago or 5 years ago. And so I think a lot of us inherently fear change. Change has this negative connotation for a lot of us, and view change as an opportunity. View change as a way to grow, because if you are the same person every single month, every single year, you haven't grown. And growth is really important, whether it's personal growth, professional growth, whatever that growth might look like. And then Leslie, you kept mentioning important. And I was just talking about this with someone yesterday. Something that was really interesting for me to learn and internalize is important versus urgent, right? And I always kind of thought those were the same thing. But it took me a really long time to realize if something's important, it can't be done urgently. It has to be done thoughtfully, and you have to take time. Whereas if something's urgent, you better do it quick, and you're probably not giving as much thought to it. And so I was just talking about that yesterday, and that really triggered the memory for me. So I just thought that was an interesting distinction that it took a long time for me to realize, but I think it's really important.
Well, I think that's a wonderful nuance, and that brings another nuance to mind, which is sensitivity to balance. That saying, the straw that broke the camel's back, and it's like, how much is something teetering that could go out of balance? In most cases, if you can visualize it as working with a person or a situation, and you just keep doing more and getting less in every area, there's a point where you say, okay, one more time that happens, or if that takes place, I'm out of here, or I'm making a change. So you're actually observing different elements of your life and re-justifying your time, your effort, your thoughts, and where do you invest them? And that's where the balance is. If you're putting more in and getting less out in most areas of your life, I don't think that's in definition fulfilling. I think that's really taking advantage of yourself by allowing yourself to get shortchanged, right? If you gave somebody a 10 and they gave you $3 back, would you keep going back to that person, doing it again and again? Because it's so visual and it's so easy not to do. But when you start putting in, well, if you add this and you think of that and you got to factor that in, no, it is what it is. And if you find out you're wrong, you can't be that wrong. So the point is, how fast do you balance? How fast do you make the changes? And where do you do them? So with that, let's get back to these comments. Rita says agility is imperative for leaders. Staying on your toes, pivoting, you want to be in the action. You want to be creating things, being proactive, moving things around versus being on the other side of the receiving end, because control is important to have balance, right? You say, I'd fix that if I had the money, right? That would put this house in balance. But, and that's where the but comes in. Renabdip says, wonderful to join. Great. Janie's right there agreeing with us. Renabdip says, balance is very much required for each and every one in their day-to-day life. You look at your speedometer, you look at your fuel gauge, that kind of gives you an idea of where you are in what you have and what you might need to do to keep it, fully in good measure. Linda says an important balance not taught enough is for self-care. People have heart trouble and have to be alert to our body, diabetes, and have to balance diet and sugars. An immune system is brought up. That's the key, is reevaluating where are the priorities, what do I need to do, because you got to take care of yourself first in order to be strong enough and healthy enough to take care of somebody else. Rita says only one who likes change is a weight-wet baby. People need a reason to change. And
thank you for the laugh.
Rita's always good with keeping it light, so we're so happy to have her. This is where mentors and models count. And that's the other thing. If you're out of balance, sometimes you got to go to an expert, right? If your heating's not working, you're not going to just take a screwdriver and start doing stuff. Hopefully not.
I might.
Yeah, I could think of that even. Be nimble like a thimble, fit into many, balances, adaptability. It's
Yes.
so true. This distinction between important and urgent comes down to degrees of flexibility. Is this non-negotiable? What are the consequences if I don't do it now? If I do X and Y time, will it be just as effective? And I think that's really a key distinction, is how do you do things over time? If you can't solve the puzzle today, can you get a piece of it in? Learn something about the next one, and ultimately, it takes care of itself if you allow it to. So I think patience has a lot to do with it. Janie says, been there, done that. It's about me and my mental health. Well, the game is between you and yourself, every day. And you choose between yourselves how you want to treat yourself, what you want to allow yourself to be and do. And you can always go back to yesterday, tomorrow, if the new plan today doesn't work. Natalie says, good morning, just joined. Natalie's just great. It's been on the show a couple times. What I found a key qualifying to guest on the show is just very good people who are happy to help other good people, and that's means that this can be so wide reaching, because it's just putting a couple things in order. Sometimes what we're talking about, Cindy says, I've been a diabetic since, my life is always about balance. I have to keep up with insurance changes, and that's the key, is how much attention you pay to yourself and what you should do, and then how fast do you ultimately do it. My priority is working out on my gym to help my mental health and my serotonin. There's so many benefits you can get from nutrition, exercise, but the other thing is relationships. Are you getting that support? Are you getting people who are rooting for you? And that keeps you in the game longer and makes you feel like I'm not alone. Scott comes back with our time is like a pie, and there's only 100% that we have to spread out among the things that are important. Could be 50-50 or some other balance that we deem best. You make the game, you set the rules, you give out the badges at the end of the tournament. Why wouldn't you treat yourself better? I mean, you can. Hello, Melissa, it's Paul, and my adopted grandson. Grateful to be here to learn and support you all. Personally, I believe balance is a myth, so I focus on fulfillment and harmony. Life is like the weather. There are seasons and storms. We have to find the rain. Well, and that's the key with words, is they mean different things to different people at different times. And that's another reason why, especially, judgment should never come into play when someone tells you what a word means to them, right? Or what a color means, or what a place means. You should say, great. Diversity and inclusiveness is the key to, evolving together, carrying more people to the peaks you want to go to. Here we have a new individual. I've seen work-life balance important so we don't get burnout. Yeah, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And everything's a continuum, not an outcome. Because tomorrow you got to wake up, whatever happens, and do it again or do something else. Agree, measure up, and stay in balance is our challenge. Thanks for reminding us all. Linda is, yes, Don, look at how doing things went from cumbersome typewriter, having at our fingers, to send messages, letter, and email, allowing more time to balance. That's so true. But everything that was supposed to save us time became a time suck. I mean, they took us away from our wasting of time, and now they created wasting of time for us, to allow us to spend more time with their stuff. I'm alone, being married twice and divorced twice, lost my partner, but I'm going well. Well, that's what I think everybody should appreciate, that you never know what you don't know. You never know what a person's dealing with or has dealt with or is about to deal with. And if not now, when, and everybody's going to deal with it. So the key is what is there to support you, to put everything in the best perspective you can. Thank you so much, Janie, for sharing that. Linda says hugs and so much changing healthcare coverage. Well, you need an advocate to get balance, really. Go into any situational, institutional, if someone's not on your side or you don't know what you're doing, good luck. So, Leslie, back to you with all this compelling interaction.
Great comments. And one thing is, I don't know how to balance being a co-host and replying to the comments during the show. So you'll see me in the comments later this afternoon. I do want to put in one plug for our friend Stephen Eng, because he's here, and in a little over an hour, he's going to be on Raquel Flores's Connection Corner. So at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, I hope you'll all go to Raquel Flores's live stream, where it has Stephen. I think Nicole is the other guest. So it'll be a great time and a great conversation. With that, there were so many different things that got mentioned that really stuck with me. And I think the important versus urgent that Melissa mentioned, because it's reminding me of some recent situations with teams that I was coaching on, where it was how you defined important and urgent. So some people use the word important and what they really mean is urgent, and they don't distinguish. And then everyone feels all this pressure where they're dropping everything. And it became more of a conversation where when one said, I know what you have to say is very important, so I want to schedule time for it. But sometimes that left it open for the person to say, I don't know if I would classify this as important. It's actually urgent because, something's falling from the window kind of urgency. And when they heard each other, it just completely changed their perspective on how we were using words and how important perspective is. The same way that the word balance kind of bothers me, but I know the rest of the world likes the word balance. So I just, do the mind trick and I tell myself that we're talking about harmony. And I think it's that same thing with important and urgent. They're used interchangeably when they really need to be distinct. Otherwise, that's why we're under such pressure. You mentioned like email was supposed to save us time. You know what? I think I had more time back in the day when I had to type up a memo, think about whether I wanted to make the copies to distribute, put it in the interoffice mail. Yes, I'm showing my age because I remember these interoffice mail envelopes. But I had to put a lot of thought into what I wanted to put in that envelope and when it would arrive. And now with email, I'm sure you've all experienced, you open that inbox and to decide what's urgent, what can wait, and then what's the perception of the other person and spending time communicating that just becomes a challenge, but we have to do it so that people know we got what they sent. And I think it's important, and I'm going to address it tomorrow, next week, or whenever.
Sounds great. I think you made some wonderful points, Melissa.
Yeah, it's funny. That point really resonated with me too. So I'm going to piggyback on that. All of these things that are supposed to be time savers, and they are in some ways, they've also made us accessible 24/7. And so how often do we get an email or a text or a Slack or a Telegram or whatever means of Telegram, like the app, not like Western Union, where you feel compelled to answer it immediately, even if it's outside of your working hours, even if it's on a Saturday, because you know that the person who sent it knows that you probably saw it. And so I think that really goes back to setting boundaries. And it's hard, right? We want to be seen as productive. We want to be seen as that go-to person. But if you are never in downtime, if you never turn off, you're just going to burn out. And one thing that I've seen a few people start doing that I really appreciate is I'll see a signature line on their email that says something to the effect of, I recognize that my working hours might not be the same as yours. Please answer this during your regular working hours. And I think that's such an empathetic, beautiful thing to do because, especially, I work with people in many different countries. A lot of the people I work with are, 12, 13-hour time difference. I'm getting emails from them when I'm sleeping. There's no expectation that I'm going to answer those immediately. But if somebody, they might have a different life situation. They might work odd hours. They might have responsibilities to care for an aging parent or something where their schedule is not the same as mine. And to offer that gift of, hey, I know I'm sending this to you at a strange hour. I don't expect you to get back to me right away. I think that's so important. And I'd like to see more people doing that.
Well, I think to that point, one has to appreciate that in the older days, you had to take a pen to paper, have a stamp, have an envelope. So the mail you sent and received was far more relevant because not that many people would write a irrelevant letter to somebody they didn't know, spend the stamp, the time, and the effort. But when you could spam someone, and be so intrusive, and now with AI appear so authentic, it's really you and you that hasn't changed at all. And what comes to mind is the words you use for yourself to get balance aren't always the same words you can use for people around you to get balance, right? Because you don't want to share exactly where you are at times or who you are at the time. And you know who you're dealing with, so you know in some ways what they're capable of receiving and appreciating. So, balance is always impacted by filters. And some of them are your own artificial filters of I'm not good enough, it's not time, I need more thought. you're just making excuses for yourself to yourself and not even believing them, but okay, pass on that for now. Where it's really coming back to yourself and doing some closet organizing, and doing a little bit of what can I do. And the nice thing about a platform with LinkedIn, with a community like that, you amplify yourself so many more ways and times than you could have one-on-one, meeting someone, seeing somebody, even a Zoom call. And that's what people should really do, is not change their message, change their projection and their audience more. Because as you change your message, you get an imbalance. Well, I know what I want to say, but I also know what they want to hear and what they're paying for. So, what am I going to do? And you say, well, I do what I got to do. But you don't got to do it because you created that situation, right? Early on, you should have made clear of who you are, what you do, and how you do it. And somebody should have been clear about that back to you. And the nice thing about these programs, you get to meet people one day at a time, one comment at a time, and they show themselves, like Stephen, like Ashif, all these people. I've talked to them. I make it a habit of talking to everybody in the audience because I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what we can do to do better. Because it's like a family, if your cousin just got a new job and he's doing great, or someone just bought a new house and you're celebrating. And that's leveling up, balancing up. And you can get balance because you can lean on people, right? You see all those acrobatic acts. It's all perfect balance or they're going to tumble somehow, and everybody's holding somebody up by something, to make it artistic and creative and make people want to keep coming back and seeing it. So, in essence, do we go out in the world balanced? Here's Natalie. Let's go for some comments. Finding balance is joining a busy community, welcoming new people into my life, and regaining productivity has been challenging. I invest a lot of time in nurturing existing relationships, but I also want to embrace new connections and experiences. Is why not? You can keep what you got and add to it. It's not a give and take all the time. Scott says maybe you should wake up and answer them, Melissa.
No.
Matthew, who's here, great to see you, Matthew. Greetings from Ireland. I take a quality break often. In fact, I'm off to a family's 21st birthday barbecue. Now I have a super weekend. Take a break, folks. That's part of balance. That should be an element. Balance is the perfect state of still water. Confucius still within. Boy, we're getting upscale now with Confucius, and we're really getting profound. That's terrific, Ashif. Scott, do people still learn how to write in cursive anymore?
No, they don't. My daughter never learned.
I never learned. Maybe, I wasn't where you're supposed to learn that. But anyways, I believe they stopped teaching in school. I learned in 3rd grade. Natalie comes back. While cherishing current connections is crucial, I understand the value of openness to new individuals. By striking a harmonious blend of deepening existing relationships, actively seeking fresh connections, managing my time effect. You got it all. It's a lot. If you can do it all, you're going to get a lot further than people who aren't going to do that. Let me see. Ann John's here. Great to see you. Ann John says history would have gone topsy-turvy had Ben-Hur's chariot not have lost a wheel. Well, there's something to everything. And, bringing it back to Leslie, pretty interesting, balanced conversation we're having today.
Definitely. But it comes full circle. It's about being able to say no to things. And like Melissa said, it's a challenge. And perhaps more so for women. But the people pleaser thing, I think there's plenty of men who have a hard time saying no. In fact, I was on a live. I was in the comments on a live where they were talking about setting those boundaries, and that if you don't learn how to say no, then it's always going to be pressure because there's only so much time in a day. And it's hard to say no. And then, but I've learned I have a easier time hearing no. And there was a contractor a vendor type contractor that really taught me that you really have to learn how to say no, and I'm still not good at it. But he was the person that I always called first. And this is back in my first career, where I was in real estate and construction. I would always call, every time there was a project, call him. And more often than not, he said no. And he always is like, why do you call me first? I'm like, because you're the only one who actually knows how to say no. So when you say yes, I know you really mean it. And the others, because it was business, they always said yes, even though they might have not had the right crew. They weren't the best company for the job. They didn't even have time for the job. And I keep on trying to remind myself of that, how frustrating it was to hear yes when I didn't really have time to say yes. And now I'm learning I can say yes. I'll say yes if we look at this in a month. So, because I find it hard to just go the hard no. And that's what it's true. And they'll be like, oh, well, I need this now. Okay, then I'm not the right person to help you. And it's that. So now I'm trying that, and it's working better, because it's still really hard to just outright say no. No, I can't do that. No, I don't have time for you. No, I don't want to do that.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And I've also had to really get better at, even if I really want to do something, recognizing, do I actually not only have the time to do it, but do I have the time to do it in a meaningful way? Like, what's the ROI on it for me, but also for the person
Yes.
that I'm doing it with, right? So I'm so fortunate. Like, this is such a wonderful problem to have. It's not a problem. I get a lot of requests for virtual coffees. Can we do a Zoom? Can we meet? And I love connecting with people. I truly do. I enjoy it. It's one of the highlights of my day. But I also have to work to like pay my bills. Like, I have to do the work that my clients need me to do. And so I've had to really say, absolutely, I definitely want to meet with you. Please understand it's probably going to be 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, because I want to give that person my full attention, and I don't want to hop on a call sandwiched in between things when I'm mentally exhausted. I want to do it when I have some bandwidth to really get to know that person and to see what value can I give them. How can we work together? How can we support one another? How can we just form a friendship? I hate transactional relationships. They don't have to be transactional. It can just be, hey, you're a really interesting person. I want to get to know you because you bring a different perspective to things that I don't necessarily have exposure to. So I think that's super important. Not necessarily having to say no, but maybe saying yes, but not right now. Yes, but 3 weeks from now. I think it's super important.
Well, being conditional and relative also brings context to every word, and no is a muscle that gets stronger the more you exercise and it gets easier the more you say it. And I would rather say no, even though I know when I'm saying no what it's going to mean, and say ugh for about a second and then it's done, versus going along with something I never liked from the beginning and having to live a day or an event like, hey, we're going to the amusement park. Well, I'm not going. I don't feel like being. So the point is also, people already know you and what you're capable of and what you're used to. Right. So if you never went to the beach and you don't want to go to the beach, when they ask you, you want to go to the beach and you say no, it's like, well, we kind of figured, versus, hey, that's a surprise to us. And also, your no allows somebody else to come back with a no later on to help themselves. And then everybody gets real. It's like, why don't we only get together when we want to get together to do something we both enjoy or want to do? But to keep someone company because you were afraid to say no, I can see if someone needed some extra assistance or as a special occasion, it's like, yeah, I'll make an exception. I'll go to the beach if it's a big party and you think I can bring some value. And that's really the essence of every conversation. It's built on words, and your words should turn into questions about the word, and why not share? Hey, that would put me out of balance. I am full up on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. If I had to meet or do something, I couldn't do it, or I'd have to call someone, put them out of balance again. So when you get everything orderly, you want to be careful how you add the next dish to the next dish, to keep it in balance. And those are things that give you reasoning to say, that's why I'm saying no. Because to say no without something, no, I can't do it. I got a doctor's appointment. Sorry. And I understand, so why not share that? Because that's where a friend is saying, well, you're not going to tell me any more than that. You're going to only go halfway and then let me guess. And most people would say, I didn't even know I was doing that. Here, I'm going to doctor, whatever. You can come with me if you don't believe me. But let me go to comments, and then we'll move it back. These comments are just so fast and furious. There's like a delay, and they catch up somehow. What many people don't realize about focus is it can be a dangerous thing if you lack self-awareness, because it blinds you to everything else you're not focusing on. And that's why reviewing on a regular, short-term basis for new things that are already part of you, you don't have to review every day, and certain new things you want to just see, hey, where's it going? What's going on with this? And be involved in it. You should never surprise yourself with what you already know. A yes and a no person borders on manipulative platform, and really seeing it, understanding. I see, that's what I will say wisdom and experience helps with, is you get to match it up with more and more of the past peoples and situations. And this reminds me, just like that person or that situation, and this is how it worked out. I agree with you saying no is important. Dennis comes back with, agree to stay in balance and you will not have a weak end, but a strong end, and enjoy it. And that's so important. Be like my parents years ago and say maybe. There's hope in maybe, but you know what they say? Give me a yes or a no, but don't put me in the purgatory of maybe, because I'm going to have to keep coming back here and asking you, are you ready? So it's all relative and conditional. And John, see if we have something. Meteor Scott says, yes, every yes to one person is a no to someone else, and vice versa. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do and keep moving. Not everything requires a reaction. Free your mind with focus. Paul is, I usually don't say no to people. I'll say something like not yet, or I'm not the right person. Yeah, when I know for sure, I just say for sure. So the sooner the better. It's when it's already a done deal, you might as well just say, hey, it is what it is, maybe in the future. Life is good when life is a beach. You design your own beach. Well, I can see Leslie loves the beach. Leslie Flowers is here. Actually, Leslie's coming back tomorrow with Harvey Tuck on Sunday. It'd be a great show. I'm always trying to mix up all these wonderful personalities and talented individuals. I set short business hours, so every appointment is precious and has value to me. The challenging thing is when sometimes people don't show up, and that time is no longer available to anyone else. You're so right. It's a courtesy of saying, if you know you're not going to make it in an hour, tell the person an hour earlier than 2 minutes before, because it could have been used for something. I mean, if you're conscientious, like I believe Melissa and Leslie are, when we make an appointment, we schedule it. And that's time we could have put somewhere else, or even with ourselves. And now we got an empty hour. And then you hear, can we schedule another appointment? I got stuck in an elevator or something. And it's like, that just makes challenging a little more challenging. Dennis says, agree to be careful. Don't let your words, oh, Dennis. Dr. Leslie, always happy to see you, my friend. Beverly's here. Beverly's been doing great. Happy weekend all. Beverly's up in Canada. So happy to have her. Here's a new name I haven't seen. Happy to join you today. Same here. Thank you for coming. Scott comes back with, we all have so many great things on our dockets. The problem is they are all in competition with one another. Family time versus self-care, our 9 to 5 versus our entrepreneurial pursuits, our marketing projects versus our research, so much. But here's the thing, and I like Leslie Flowers' comment, is I have a reduced calendar of hours. You know, if you're going to give 8 to 6, you better be available 8 to 6, you know, and it's better to have everything you get out of the way, which with this show, I don't start till 11 and probably end about 3 or 4 for appointments, right? Because then let everybody else fit in so your schedule doesn't get out of balance. You don't have to refuse things like, yeah, I could have went to dinner, but I got a call. And to what we're talking about, you want to be accessible. So, you know, fair is what fair is. Beneath is here. Thank you for being here. It's been a bit. Laxman's here. Haven't seen you in a while. Benita, well done. I celebrate you, and I celebrate you too. And I think that's where balance comes in, is people can bring that piece to you that you're missing and just put it in there and make it like a jigsaw puzzle. You know, I know it seems as an empty hour when someone cancels, but it's also empty if you let it be. There are other things that can be done that can still make your day better. And there was a book I read by someone I forget at this point, but it was Thank You for Being Late was the title. Same gentleman that did The World is Flat and everything else. And what it was is he made an appointment for lunch and he got on a taxi and he got there early. And naturally you look at your clock and every minute closer that someone isn't there, you know, you're starting to get a little bit maybe frustrated. And even if someone gets there 3-4 minutes late, they've already built up 3 minutes of where are you? Why did you be late? That they may not overcome. But what it came down to is he just decided that Thomas Friedman actually is his name. He just decided that, hey, I got things I can catch up on. And then he ended up doing something pretty neat. And when the gentleman came late and he was so apologetic, he said, no, thank you for being late because it allowed me to finish something I wouldn't have finished right now. So, you know, again, it's responsibility, it's accountability, it's taking what's given and making the best out of it, you know, and learning from it and knowing it wasn't you. It was them, you know, that didn't show up on time. You did everything you were supposed to do, you know, so you can't feel bad about yourself. And then you ask yourself, how do I avoid this happening in the future? And, you know, not to stay on this point, but it's all about how much advance did you give, right? How much notification? I got to see, let me see what's going on here.
You're like, why are you two laughing?
I think we're both laughing at the same one.
And now on some of the internet.
We're not laughing at you, Paul, I promise.
No.
Okay. I think we caught up. So with that, okay, 8 to 6, you may get 80. Okay. Leslie.
So, well, I'll share what I think Melissa was laughing at because it made me laugh. Scott said, I'm going to make it my personal mission to tell Melissa no at least 3 times this coming week.
I look forward
I love it. And just let's see how she manages it. That's also like, it's me here. I think I hear no's better than I can say a no. And I think then it's also because I know some people, even like family members, close friends, when I did say no, they fight me on it, you know, and they're going to start saying, well, what are you doing then? Oh, mine's more important than yours. So I learned, that's why I started testing out this idea of saying yes and then adding the parameters, that I wasn't necessarily saying yes to what they wanted, which was the urgent response where, yes, what you have to do, you know, what you're asking is really important. I'll do it next week or whatever, or I have someone else who's going to do it for me kind of thing. It's really hard to do the no. And I learned that using maybe as the alternative was worse, because you're leaving it like in this limbo where you still have to go back to them and figure out what to say. I think in the workplace, I found this balancing between yes and no became easier when I didn't start with no, because once you said no, someone heard it as defiant, especially if they were your manager. So it was yes or not saying yes, like, hey, well, I answer that, let's look at my projects and reprioritize them so I can say yes. That kind of thing really works well in the office, because I've seen it. It's usually a very common conflict between managers and teams where the boss will say, they were always saying no. I'm like, well, did you find out why? No, it doesn't matter. They were saying no. Like the no stops someone from listening and it stops the communication. So finding that balance. I also have a very difficult time. I have no problem scheduling time for myself. I actually like spending time with myself. Alone time is important, not just like, I don't even think of it as self-care. I need to just wind down. I be calm, clear my thoughts, like not think, because I actually do my best brainstorming when I'm not thinking by myself. But if you tell someone you're busy and they're like, what are you going to be doing? I'm going to be doing something by myself. I might make up an excuse because people will start debating with me, depending on who it is. And I'm like, you can't debate my time. Now I'm going to take more time to myself and not spend any time with you. So there's a lot of challenges, especially being an entrepreneur, because people think my time is completely flexible, which they think means I have, limitless time. And actually, I don't, because I'm doing everything in this business. I may be able to be flexible to say, I'm going to do some of my work later tonight and spend some time with you. But that doesn't mean my time is limitless because I'm an entrepreneur. So I have to keep on setting those boundaries.
Yeah, makes sense. Melissa?
Yeah, it's really true. And you touched on something, I feel like we've definitely been talking a lot about balance and boundaries and making choices in our personal lives, which is super important. It's also really important in our work lives. And what you were saying, Leslie, really reminded me. So probably, I think it was the first time I had ever managed people, right? I was a really young manager. I was really inexperienced. And it was crazy time because I work in the fashion industry. So believe me, it's crazy. One of my direct reports, I asked her to do something. And she came to me and she said, listen, I have A, B, and C that I have to do. What do you want me to do first? Like, what's the priority? And that was so eye-opening to me. I think we're so often just conditioned to whatever our bosses tell us to do, we just do. And that always stuck with me, right? If I'm going to ask people to do things, I need to tell them what's the most important thing. When do I need things prioritized? What's urgent? What's important? What's something that they can do at a later date? What's something that maybe they don't even need to do? I can have somebody else do. And I think that that's super important. It was a lesson that really, really stuck with me. And then I was looking at the comments, and before Scott made it his personal mission to say no to me, he also mentioned something really important, which is like, we all have so many choices. We all have so many options of things to do. And it really gets back to prioritizing, like, what is going to give us the most joy? What's going to give us the greatest ROI? And that could be a business ROI, it could be a personal ROI, but we can't do everything. I haven't figured out a way to clone myself yet. God knows the world doesn't need two of me. So what's going to give me the most bang for my buck? What am I going to say, oh my gosh, I am so glad I didn't miss that. I'm so glad that I did that. I got so much out of it. And that's really something we all have to strive for.
Yeah, and I think after listening to everything we've said today, you don't have to worry too much about saying no or being out of balance if you have a vetted group that you're comfortable with, right? And some people will put you in balance or help you get to balance instead of just being a drag on your balance. And in most cases, if you're really, if they're really close family and you can't get enough of them, it doesn't matter what it is, right? We're all meeting at the park. Well, I'll be there, or the grandkids are going to be. Yesterday, I went to this really super play that they put on, for their summer play camp, and it was so. I mean, there wasn't a Broadway production that could ever rival that because it's really who you're with and then what you're doing, not what you're doing and who you're with. So if you get the people straight, right? First, you get yourself, right? Because that's, where it all begins. And then you add your people to it like a layer cake, right? And then once you're with the people, then you can say through consensus, hey, what's everybody want to do around here? What can we do together? Right? And all of a sudden you can imagine and create that balance for everyone together. And each one makes each other stronger for being collaborative and collective, and there's safety in numbers, and that's what I see is, everybody has gotten to wherever they've gotten, however they've gotten there. Now what do you want to add going forward, and what do you want to subtract, and what do you want to reprioritize? Because ultimately whatever your goal is, your actions should move you towards it. And there's a saying, everything you do either takes you closer to your goal or further away, right? If you're eating junk food versus eating vegetables, you're getting closer to whatever it is. And that's what, if you can look at yourself and catch yourself, it's like, no, I don't want to waste my money there, or I'm not going to put time into there because once I get started, it's going to be 3 hours gone and I could have got something important done. And when you're working when someone else isn't, but enjoying who you're with, the work goes, people say, I can't take it anymore. Why? It's not the work, it's the people. If the people were celebrating you every minute and making you feel happier and wealthier and in every way, they would earn that time. And I think if everybody understands, nobody really rides for free. You got to earn your spot on someone's bus and they got to earn theirs on your bus, and things are changing, which is good and bad. So with that said, we're kind of coming up on the top of the hour. Let me see if this is a new one. I think Sunday Nate tells us so much about our balance, the way we view the upcoming week. But his expectations, deadlines, fun times, relaxing pace, the people counting on us, these last few hours Sunday night usually speak to us. It's just like vacations, right? If you're on a 7-day vacation, the first day, second day, and by the 5th day, it's like, oh, geez, I got to go back to work in 3 days. Oh, now, so, honestly, in the 37 years that I had my companies, I couldn't wait for Mondays. I mean, I was raring to go. I was wishing everybody would be up already. And some people, they're dragging to Friday. Their whole thing is get through the week. And keep your job, keep your paycheck. It's like a rat race. Melissa Cohn, many times we think people's lives, responsibilities are easier until we live in that person's shoes. I remember when my cousin told me, you sit down all day and saw the work conversations. I was like, wow, this is insane. Ashif says, I believe sharing with others balances both parties. Makes sense. Looking out for each other is balancing. Your tribe will respect, understand your no, and love you anyway. So true, Beverly. And, you can't be a people pleaser to people that aren't looking out for you anyways. Health can make you stop, learn to appreciate what you can choose. People are always focused on what they have versus being happy for what they don't have. On this, the Sunday scaries, glad I left that behind. Well, final words. We're at top of the hour. Leslie, what's your thoughts on balance since we started?
I think the Sunday Scaries kind of like summarizes it. If you don't have the Sunday Scaries, you've probably got some good balance. For me, I haven't had the Sunday Scaries in several years because Monday is my day off. So that's how I did that. I love Mondays. But I don't get the Monday scaries either, and that's how I know I'm doing work that I love and I've made choices, you know, with benefits I could have had, real vacation time. I have to give it to myself as being my own boss. And I just find that harmony, but it is a matter of I like my work and I like, my personal life. And I keep some boundary, but they intersect much more now than when I was at those corporate jobs where it was a matter of like, oh, I've got to get out of here to start my personal life. It didn't intersect as much. Now I'm working with people I enjoy. I meet with people I like talking with, and it just keeps the harmony where I don't feel the same stress, and I'm just happy to go to work because it's just part of my life.
Well, that's great. It's nice to have people who are happy with their balance. And it's usually because they can relate it to when they were out of balance. And
Yes,
sometimes didn't even know it. Because you don't know your limit till you've hit it, right? And when you're young
exactly.
and experience, everything is new, interesting, and then you find out, wow. And enough wows put you into a situation where your boundaries start to get put together based on experience or reason versus just shutting things off or opening things up. So that's great, Leslie. Can't thank you enough.
Great
Melissa,
point.
what's your final thoughts on balance in the show and what we've been able to accomplish?
I have a lot. But I think for my final thought, I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago, John, which is it's about the people, right? There's like a saying, it's a little bit of a cliche, but cliches are true for a reason, right? That's why they're so popular. People don't leave people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very true. I think you can tolerate and even enjoy really hard work if the people are good people and if the work has meaning. I think those are the two most important things. And a good manager and good coworkers will carry you through really tough work environments, really tough mind challenging work, right? It can be hard, it can be difficult, it can be really inspiring, but it's all about the people. It's who do you work for? Who do you work with? And I think that's why what you do, Don, is so special and why this community is so special, because look at the people who come here, people who give up an hour of their day on a regular basis, but they're not really giving it up, right? Because they're getting such an ROI. They're getting so much in return. They're getting community. They're getting knowledge. They're getting to feel that they're being seen and they're being heard, and that what they say contributes to the conversation and that it matters, because it does. Because you could just do the show alone, right? You could do your own show and just talk for an hour and it would be super interesting, but this is what makes it special, that you bring people up in the comments, you talk about what they have to say, and that's a rare gift for people.
You're so right, and that's so gracious in saying that. And I always told people who used to work for me, it's not how much you make, it's who you become here, right? Because who you become is where you go forward from. You want to get compensated, but the number one benefit that people say at work is recognition. And if you recognize people and make them feel special because they are, and where the huge opportunity is the default manager is the person who should really be managing people, right? And if you can be the person everybody can't wait to see, people aren't commodities. People will be more creative, more innovative, more freeing if you give them that latitude as opposed to controlling, because the other thing that goes with it is you're going to duplicate your management style through the people that came up through you, right? Because they're going to say, hey, that's how I learned it, that's how I was treated, and it got me here. So it just self perpetuates a bad situation. And a smart entrepreneur would say, well, all we got to do is flip it upside down. And look at how many people would be attracted to our company, our culture, our environment, and that's what keeps people in the game long enough. So, without getting into detail, retention and all that other stuff shows up in training, blah, blah, blah. So on a balancing note, hope everybody gained a little more balance today. If not, different ways one can at least view it, take it out and lay it out. It's like taking your jewelry box and just throwing it on the table and sorting it out and seeing what you have, putting it together in a good way, because at least you acknowledge it's there, right? If it's valuable, how valuable is it if you're never participating with it? And the same thing with people. So with that, tomorrow we're going to have, like I say, Leslie Flowers, Harvey Tuck. Monday, actually, we're going to have Mike Aschenbrenner from the Hounds with a wonderful lady who I actually got a chance to talk to yesterday. Jody Lamb will be here with Mike. And want to also recognize, had a wonderful guest, which was just yesterday, I believe. No, I'm getting mixed up here before I get to. Yeah, we had Kinga here, and Kinga did really well. And Kinga mentioned she knew you, Melissa. So, it's really nice to spread the wealth, bring more people in. Look forward to having Leslie and Melissa back. And I want to wish everybody a happy Saturday. And check out Stephen and Raquel at 1 p.m. Eastern, I guess. And with that, thank you all. You all make such a difference for all of us. So take care.
Thank you.